Hi, my name's Val Jones. Most of you who've been to the seminars will probably remember me. And today I'm going to explain how to do a permanent residence application on the Home Office forms. We're going to use a scenario of a worker qualified person, and his name is Antonio Alves de Silva. He's a national of Spain and he comes from Barcelona. He's been in the UK for over 5 years, and his wife and two daughters came with him on the same date and live with him in Durham. He's a lecturer in the Department of Hispanic Studies. The scenario is on the website on this page. I'm going to also be using the permanent resident application, which is 94 pages long with a couple of extra pages that we need to insert, and the current permanent residence guidance notes, which were updated yesterday, the 12th of April. Everything that I'm going to talk about today is highlighted, so in yellow. So as we go through it, if you can access the forms, then it will help as we do it page by page. So we'll turn now to the actual application form, EEA-PR, and the version is 03/2016. Now this is the form that Antonio and his wife Joanna and two children, Rita and Alice, will use to make their application for a document certifying permanent residence under the EEA regulations. So they're all Spanish nationals and they're all EEA nationals exercising treaty rights in the UK. To qualify for permanent residence, you must normally have lived in the UK for a continuous period of 5 years, and Antonio has done that as a worker. His family members have joined him and they are close family members and they're all EEA nationals. The fee for each person applying on this form is £65. So in total, for Antonio and his 3 family members, the cost will be £260. Antonio has chose to pay by MasterCard, but you can pay by cheque, postal order or debit card, and Maestros are only allowed if they are issued in the UK. If you use a cheque or postal order, you must make it payable to the Home Office and cross the cheque to account payee only. The important page to get correct is page 6 of 85, and it is the payment details. I've highlighted in yellow each of the sections that you need to complete, and the contact address, the full name is given in the passport, which is Antonio Alves de Silva, his date of birth, and he is the main applicant with 3 family members, and he's ticked the box of £260. He's ticked MasterCard, the name on the MasterCard, the card number, valid from, the expiry date, the 3-digit CVV number on the back, and then he signed it and dated it, today's date, the 13th of April 2017. It's really important that you check these numbers, because if the numbers are incorrect and the Home Office are unable to take payment, then the application will be rejected as invalid and you'll be sent back and you'll be charged a fee of £25 administration fee. So it's worth double checking those payment details. The total number of pages in this application is 85 pages, and the next page that we need to turn to is page 15. We're not going to fill in the biometric information because all of the family are EEA nationals. So page 15 of 85, we go to section 1, which is the applicant details, Antonio Alves de Silva. Section A, the document he's applying for is I'm an EEA national applying for a document certifying permanent residence. Section B, personal details. He's got to supply 2 recent identical photographs of himself with his full name on the back of each one. You've got to place the photographs in a small sealed envelope and attach it across this box on page 15 with a staple or paper clip at the right hand side, but making sure that the paper clip or staple doesn't damage or mark the photographs. All photographs must be as specified for passport photographs, and there's a link on the form to give you the exact details if you need it. The next section is 1.2, full name as in your passport or national identity card, and the surname. Date of birth on page 16, gender and marital status. And in this case, Antonio's ticked married. 1.11 is confirming your current nationality and whether he holds any other nationality or citizenship, which Antonio doesn't, he's just Spanish. Page 17, his place and country of birth is Barcelona, Spain. 1.15 is his current address in the UK, and home time, daytime, telephone number and mobile number. The email address is important at the bottom because if you don't provide a valid email address for yourself, the Home Office won't be able to send you confirmation that they've received the application. And equally, it's important that you check your emails at regular intervals and respond to any requests for information. Page 18 of 85, the relevant section is 1.22, your Home Office reference number if you already have one, and your UK national insurance number. The next section is C, and Antonio's got to give details of all the family members that he's including in this application. And each family member must provide 2 identical photographs with their full name written on the back of each photograph. And the first family member is his wife, Joana Ferreira Alves de Silva, who is Spanish. Page 19 of 85 gives further details of her date of birth, gender, Home Office reference number, and her relationship to the sponsor, which is spouse, and confirming that she's applying for a document certifying permanent residence as an EEA national. The next family member to be included on the application is the older daughter Rita, and again the same details are filled in for the daughter: her nationality, gender, date of birth and relationship to the sponsor, and the fact that she's applying for a document certifying permanent residence. And the last family member is young Alice, and her personal details are equally entered on the form. Now, the next page that is relevant, we don't need to fill in the sponsor because the sponsor is the main applicant in this occasion, so we can skip those pages and go to page 23 of 85. This confirms the basis that you're applying for, and Antonio has ticked, I've lived in the UK for a continuous period of 5 years as an EEA national qualified person. And it confirms that he's got to complete sections 5, 9, 16, 17, 18 and 19 of this form. His family members have to complete sections 11 and 12, which is highlighted on page 24 of 85. Section 11 for his spouse and section 12 for each of his 2 children. So the next section we've got to complete, as instructed on those previous pages, is section 5, residence in the UK. Now, Antonio and his family, as you can see by the scenario, have been living in the UK since the 31st of August 2011. They have had some absences from the UK, but the latest guidance states that you don't have to divulge these absences as long as they were for less than 6 months, because you are allowed to be out of the UK for up to 6 months in any 12-month period. So what I've done in this section on page 28 is explain this. This is for the applicant Antonio. I have worked for over 5 years continuously in the UK, see evidence. I have only been out of the UK for short periods in each 12-month period and not more than 6 months for short holidays. Page 28 of 85, we've also completed again for his wife Joanna, and that confirms her residence in the UK. She's been in the UK for the same time as Antonio, from the 31st of August 2011. She's also been out for short holidays, and in the section below I've completed it. I have lived with my spouse for over 5 years continuously in the UK. I've only been out of the UK for short periods in each 12-month period and not for more than 6 months for short holidays. We've completed this information for the 2 children, for Rita, and because they came in on the same date as their parents, and confirmed that they've only been out for short periods for short holidays. If people have the information, although they don't need to tell the Home Office, on page 28 continuation sheet, I have listed a small page that you can copy the format, and it just gives this information of countries visited, date of departure, date of return, number of days, and name of person travelling. So that, if you do want to divulge the information, then you can do it on a continuation sheet like this. The next relevant section is section 9, and it starts on page 46 of 85. And it's to complete this section with details of the relevant EEA's national activity in the UK as a qualified person, also known as exercising treaty rights. And in our case scenario, Antonio is here in the UK as a worker. Page 47 asks for details in section A of the relevant EEA national's activity. Antonio, fortunately for us, has only worked in the one place, and you can see that he started work the day after he entered the UK on the 1st of September 2011, and his employment is continuing. The details I've given is the applicant Antonio Alves de Silva has been working at the University of Durham as a senior lecturer in the Department of Hispanic Studies in the School of Modern Languages and Culture. And in section 2, they ask for the name and address of his employer, and I've put the name is see above, and the address is Elvert Riverside, New Elvert, Durham, DH13HT. He started employment on the 1st of September 2011, and it's ongoing, and his salary is asked for as a gross figure, i.e. before deductions for tax and national insurance, and you have to say whether it's monthly, weekly or annual, and in this case Antonio earns $50,000 per annum per year. If Antonio had more than one job, then you would need to continue on a continuation sheet and attach it behind page 47. The next sections we need to complete are for his family members in section 11 and 12. Section 11 starts on page 58 of 85, and it's for his spouse Joanna, and she's ticked 11.1. I'm currently the spouse of her sponsor, which is Antonio, and she's got to complete all the subsections A to E. A asks when and where did you meet your sponsor, and they met at University in Barcelona as undergraduates. That gives the date their relationship began and confirms that they're not related outside of marriage. It confirms in B 11.5 that they're still living together, and the date when they started living together, which was the date of their marriage, 4th of March 2002. and they were already in a relationship, obviously the marriage when they started living together. Page 60 of 85 asks for details of the children. And do you have any children together? Yes. Do you have any children of whom your sponsor is not the parent? No. Do your sponsor have any children living in the UK of whom you are not the parent? No. Section D asks for details about the marriage and certain dates in the relationship and where they got married and whether they were both present at the ceremony. E asks about other relationships, which we've answered negative to both questions. Page 62 of 85 is section 12, and it asks questions for each dependent child aged under 21, which is Rita and Alice. So we need to complete pages 62 and 63 for each child. So you need to copy the pages and complete them for each one. As you can see, it asks for the full name for Rita, full name of her parents, their date of birth and their nationality, and whether she lives with both parents. They want to know what the child is doing, if she's working, which she isn't, because she's in full-time education at school. And we've given the dates of when she started school and what courses she's doing in each school. Same details for Alice, again on page 62 and 63. Then we can move on to section 16 of the form, which starts on page 74 of 85, and it's asking about public funding. It lists all of the types of public funding and asks if the family are receiving any. In this case, the family aren't receiving any, so they've ticked no. Section 17, which starts on page 75 of 85, is personal history, and it's asking for details of any criminal offences or civil judgments and activities connected with terrorism, etc. Happily for us, the family can tick no to all of the questions. At the bottom of page 77 of 85, it asks for ties with the country where you were born, which in this case is Spain, any other countries whose nationality you hold, in this case there aren't any, and any country where you've lived for more than 5 years. If you look at page 78, the country is Spain, where they were a national of, and the family just have normal family ties in Spain, grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts, nieces and nephews. The next section is section 18, documents and evidence. It's a reminder of all of the evidence that you need to attach to the form. It lists photographs for sections 1 and 2, and it's the 2 passport-sized photographs of the applicant Antonio and each member of his family. So in total there should be 8 photographs, and each photograph at the back has to have the full name of the person on it. Proof of identity and nationality, and it can be a valid passport, travel document or national identity card. They must be originals, and if you do have a national identity card, then you can submit that instead of a passport. Proof of your relationship to your sponsor. Now in this case, Joanna needs to submit her marriage certificate, which because she was married in Barcelona will be in Spanish. So she needs to get a certified translation in English to submit with the original Spanish marriage certificate. Equally, they need to submit the full birth certificates of the 2 children, Rita and Alice. They will be in Spanish, and again they need to be certified translation submitted with the original Spanish birth certificates. Further down the page, on page 79, there's proof of residence in the UK. for the relevant period, and it gives examples: utility bills, bank statements, council tax, NHS, mortgage, tenancy agreements, etc. We'll be going on to looking at in detail about the guidance for this particular application at the end. And on page 80, we've ticked evidence of employment, employer's letter, wage slips, bank statements, etc. Page 81, we've ticked marriage because that relates to section 11. I've already mentioned the marriage certificate and the certified translations, proof of living together, such as utility bills, tenancy agreements, NHS letters, etc., and birth certificates of the children. So they need to be full birth certificates, originals, and translated into English. Section 19 is very important because if it's not signed, it'll be rejected as invalid. So the applicant, Antonio, has to sign it and date it at the bottom after reading through exactly what he is declaring. At the back, there's a document checklist on page 85 of 85, which is the last page in the application form. And again, it just runs through and makes you check that you've got the documents that you need. So in this case, we need our 8 passport photographs, passports or national identity cards. You don't need to submit both. And it would be 4 passports or 4 national identity cards if you have them. 2 birth certificates and 1 marriage certificate. In section B, it mentions other documents, please list. I'm going to take you on to the actual guidance on the next page, but what I've summarised here is employment of applicant, Antonio. So he should have 5 P60s, and I'll refer you on the next page to Annex H of the guidance. And for the 3 family members, the relevant guidance is 39 of 40, and it's 1 piece of evidence for each 12-month period to confirm residence in the UK for each family member. So if you look at the next page, this is extracted from the guidance for you as a worker, and it's the new revised guidance published yesterday on the Home Office website, the 12th of April 2017, and it gives you example scenarios and suggested adequate evidence of activity. So here, if you look, Antonio's been in the country for 5 years, 8 months working, and they're still working. So he has been here 5 years. The application is permanent residence, so he needs to submit 5 consecutive P60s. No additional evidence of residence is required for him. In addition to the 5 years, to show that it is continuing, I would use the monthly salary slips after the last P60, just to show that it is continuing. It's not required there, but I think it's best to give as much as you can. The next page is applying as a family member, and we've got close family members, spouse and 2 children, and it's pages 39 and 40 of the new guidance. And because they're EEA nationals, they've been here longer than 5 years, they've got the 5 consecutive P60s for their sponsor, who is Antonio, proof of relationship between the applicant and the sponsor, so it's the marriage certificate and the birth certificates, and this is the extra that we need, is 1 piece of evidence for every qualifying 12-month period to confirm residence in the UK. Now for the children, that could be their school records, annual school reports, letters from the school, GP records, immunisation records, anything to show that they've been resident continually in the UK for that 5-year period. For Mrs. Alves de Silva, for Joanna, she needs to be able to show that she's resided at the address with her husband for 5 continuous years with various bills, bank accounts, etc., mobile bills, utility bills. When you accumulate all your evidence, you've got to send the originals to the Home Office. But I would strongly advise you to keep a copy of all of the evidence and the completed application together, so that you have your own records of what your application consisted of, just in case it gets lost or mislaid at the Home Office. Please send it, the Home Office actually advises you to send it either recorded delivery or special delivery, just so that you can track and trace it. And in the new guidance, it states that you don't have to send the full application, because you can see how, and this is without evidence, it's actually 94 pages long. You can just print out the ones that you've actually completed. Now, I've done that for you from this scenario, and without evidence, it's been reduced to 35 pages. So you can see it's a lot lighter, and it just contains the relevant pages that you've actually completed without, sending off the blank pages. There is an online version of the permanent residence application, and because Antonio and his 3 family members are all EEA nationals and he's a worker, then they could all apply online if they wish. This takes you through only the relevant pages that you need to complete. You can make your payment as you do it online. You then print off the application, and you have 10 days to submit it to the Home Office with the relevant evidence. If you don't want to send off your passport with the online application, then there are centres in the region that you can go to have your passport verified and copied officially, and they will give you that to submit with the application. The centres in the northeast are in Darlington, Stockton-on-Tees and in Newcastle at the registry offices. We will put the link on the website to access the online version and the passport checking centres in the region. This scenario has been relatively straightforward, with a worker during continuously in the one employment during the 5-year continuous period. You are allowed to mix and match the activities as a qualified person, and some people may have been a worker for the full 5 years but have had different employers, so they just need to show the continuity on a continuation sheet of each employment. You could mix and match as a student. You might have been out of work for up to 6 months or been on maternity leave for up to 12 months. You could be self-employed or self-sufficient, but these situations are more complex than the scenario that we've gone through today. But the good news is that the new guidance notes that were issued yesterday give up-to-date advice on each of the different categories and the different evidence that you will need to submit with your application. I've gone through the guidance and I've highlighted what I think will be useful for you in the scenario that we've talked about today. The guidance notes are the version 3.0 April 2017, and they're 40 pages long. So I'm sure you don't want me to read them through now verbatim, but if you look through it, it gives advice on the type of payment, more detailed advice than we've gone through in the actual scenario, and I've highlighted what I think is useful to you. The various sections or the different types of application that may not be this straightforward one that we've just discussed today are dealt with from section 6, and it covers where the relevant EEA national qualified person has died, where he's ceased activity, retired or been permanently incapacitated, or is now active in another EEA member state. That starts on page 9. There's retained rights of residence discussed in section 8, and that goes through to page 11. Section 9, page 12 of 40 in the guidance, discusses the activity in the UK, and you can see it gives more detailed advice on employment, and Annex H, which we have attached to the application form today. It gives you examples of more complex situations where you're unable to give 5P60s and how you might evidence that activity if you're unable to get the P60s. Annex G and H talk about self-employment. There's temporary incapacity, studying, comprehensive sickness insurance, etc. The detailed advice on section 11, the spouse in our application, is on page 15 of 40, and it gives details of the evidence that you can give in support of residence. And it's listed in the middle, towards the end of the page. Page 16 gives advice, guidance on the evidence for children under 21 to submit. As you can see from the actual application forms and the guidance, there are many variations of a theme and complexities that may arise in a small number of cases. If anybody would like to avail themselves of the free 15 minutes advice, then they just have to email us on the Durham Brexit inbox, and we'll happily respond by email with your queries. So I hope that's been helpful today, and look forward to hearing from you if you have any queries. Thank you.